Hello everyone, welcome to episode 50 of the Card Combo Show. I can scarcely believe it that we made it this far. I am, wow, I'm gobsmacked that I've managed to get to nearly a year's, well, if you say an episode a week, nearly a year's worth of videos of the Card Combo Show. Thank you so much guys for us getting here. Clearly, you guys have been enjoying what I've been doing, so the idea is to keep this train rolling. Now, there's going to be a slight change in the way in the schedule that I do things. I'm going to put out a video actually explaining how things are going to be working going forward, but there's still going to be weekly videos of the Card Combo Show, so don't worry about it. All it means is there's going to be more content, so good to go. Anyway, what better way to start off episode 50 than by starting with the brand new set? So, this week I'm going to be looking at Ewen, Shivalry, Naja Salaheem, Vaan, and finally the Dark Elf. Okay, first and foremost, Ewen. He's a 1 CP lightning forward with 2000 power, with the text, when Ewen enters the field, choose on damaged forward, break it. Nice and simple. At this point he's basically just a summon because he's not really big enough to ever stick around, and basically any board-wide effect is going to destroy him, but he still has a very powerful ability. It's as long as that forward has taken damage, it can be broken, and that's really, really good. It ties in with a lot of good things. So, first, Phoenix. You just play Phoenix, you choose Ewen in your break zone, you deal 2k to the board, Ewen enters, everything's been dealt damage, so then you can say, well, I'll just break something my opponent controls him. It's obviously worth noting that if there is a Minwu effect on the field, then that will stop Phoenix from dealing damage to the forward, so it's always good to have something in place to stop the damage from being able to be reduced to 0, so obviously Kuchaspel. Kuchaspel, I was going to say Kusith there, but yeah, Kuchaspel, which obviously technically is increasing the cost of Phoenix, but 5 CP to be able to just break something, that basically means you've got your own little Odin in fire. And then we've got Puck. So, obviously Puck can bring in a 1 CP forward from your break zone, as well as a 2 CP forward from your break zone if you are at 3 damage. So the idea here is that you bring in a 2 CP forward that will deal damage to your opponent, and then Ewen enters to then break said forward. Now, because they are technically 2 different abilities, you want to make sure that you stack Ewen first, and then the second forward, so that way the 2 CP forward enters, deals damage, then Ewen enters, sees the damage forward and says, I'm going to break that guy. Then we've got mid-previa, so there's a lot of, this is turning out to be quite similar to a few cards I've talked about recently, but Ewen fits perfectly into it, and I really like them, to be fair. So mid-previa, when he enters the field, can choose a 1 CP lightning forward break zone, play him onto the field. So you could deal damage to a forward your opponent controls in, any means, and then you play mid-previa to then bring in Ewen to then break said forward. It's also good because mid-previa has the ability to, if you have a party attack going, they'll do 8k to an active forward, and if that didn't break it, you can then play Ewen onto the field to break that forward. Talking of party attacks, I think you probably know where I'm going with this. Barts! So you could party attack with Barts and another wind forward if you've got mid-previa on the field. That would then mean you can deal 8k to something. If it doesn't die to that, Barts can then search an Ewen to play that onto the field to then break the forward. If not, you can just be in mono wind if you really wanted and just have an off-color Ewen in your deck and just use Dancer. Deal 1k to your opponent's board. You party attack with Barts and probably Boko. That will then bring in Ewen, and you get to break a forward that's been dealt damage. So nice and easy way just to kill something. And then Zemus. So I quite like this because it's quite a cheap cost to be able to almost definitely break something. So Zemus, pay X, choose one lightning forward in your break zone. If it is cost X, play it onto the field. You can only use this ability during your main phase. So that means it's only going to happen in your turn, and you can't combo it during combat. But still, it means that you can effectively attack with Ewen, and your opponent has to go, well, if I block this, Zemus is going to bring the forward back in, at which point the forward I blocked with is going to die. So they have to decide whether or not they actually want to block a little 1 CP at 2k forward, or just let it swing through and deal the damage, because ultimately Zemus will be able to bring it back in and kill something. And then you've obviously got Ovalia, which is much of the same, but it means that you can actually use Ewen as a blocker as well during your opponent's phase. So you can block with Ewen, use Ovalia's S on him, Ewen will then re-enter the field, and provided there are no Minwu effects, it means that the... I've got to stop calling them Minwu effects. Just as long as the damage hasn't been reduced to 0, Ewen will come back in and see the forward that he previously blocked and break it. Okay, next up we got Shivalry. Now this is a card that I think a lot of people that like to play Ice were excited to see, because it is a very powerful card. So it's a 2 CP EX Burst Ice Summon with the text, choose one forward. Until the end of the turn it gains 3000 power, and when a forward your opponent controls is put from the field into the break zone on the same turn that the chosen forward has dealt it damage, your opponent discards one card from their hand. That's a bit of a mouthful, but basically what it means is if the forward you buff deals damage to a forward, and then that forward is at some point in this turn broken, you get to make your opponent discard a card. So there's a lot of good cards that this card combos well with, but I quite like to think of it as not an anti-Shantoto card so much, but generally the play, or a nice telegraphing of someone about to play Shantoto, is they're able to attack with their forwards even if they're going to break, because that way their forwards won't be removed. But if they do something like that, so they just start attacking the forwards, are happy to throw under the bus, Shivalry makes that much more unpalatable, because now if they're also having to discard a card every single time a forward you control deals damage and breaks it, not so good anymore. Anyway, so Filia. When Filia enters the field, deal 10k damage to all the forwards. That's probably enough to kill, you know, all the forwards on your opponent's field. And let's say your opponent has 4 or 5 forwards on the field. You play Filia, you then play Shivalry on Filia before Filia is resolved. You break all 4, let's say 5 of their forwards. They now have to discard 5 cards. That is disgusting. Obviously, if that's the case, then your opponent is probably going to cast a summon if they are able to, or use some sort of action abilities. But regardless, that's happening. Now, unless obviously they could cancel Shivalry or cancel an auto ability, but, you know, you should take that into account when you're playing the cards. And also, you know, that does basically mean that Filia is also really a kind of a 12 CP forward at this point. But paying that much to be able to wipe your opponent's board and make them discard basically their entire hand, definitely worth it. Anima. So, Anima's got the pay 0 ability to just choose one forward your opponent controls, deal it 2k damage. You can only use this ability once per turn. But that doesn't matter, because if your opponent has a forward that is you can easily break, but you just want to deal a bit of damage, you deal the damage, you then cast Shivalry on Anima, and then you have another means of breaking said forward, so maybe casting Odin or something like that. This way you also get a discard off of that effect as well, and then maybe you want to attack 3 with Anima because it is now plus 3k as well. There's a lot of good ways to be able to combo this, but also Anima has the added effect of when a forward opponent controls is put from the field into the break zone, you get to choose another forward and dull it. So you get to dull some forwards, and you get to dull a forward, you get to break some stuff, and you get to make your opponent discard, which is pretty good in my opinion. Sid Reigns, and this is obviously the first card that everyone thought of when they saw Shivalry, because when Sid Reigns enters the field, choose a dull forward your opponent controls, deal it 4k damage. When it's put from the field into the break zone, this turn your opponent discards 1 card from their hand. So you play Sid Reigns onto the field, you then cast Shivalry, and probably Sid Reigns will be finishing something off. And then, yeah, Shivalry will take effect, and that forward dies, and your opponent now discards 2 cards. It basically means that Sid Reigns has become a 6 CP forward, but 6 CP to become an 8k this turn, that also makes your opponent discard 2 cards. Probably not the worst. What you could also do is Sid Reigns onto the field, then flicker Sid Reigns, and then cast Shivalry, meaning that you will make your opponent discard 3 cards, because obviously if you cast Shivalry the first time around on Sid Reigns, depending on the way you flicker it, it may not work. And also it's probably just better to save it till the second instance of Sid Reigns entering the field. But either way, making your opponent discard a lot of cards and breaking it forward is always a good thing. Cool, Barreleye and No-No. So Barreleye, it's very easy to trigger Barreleye's ability to be able to deal 3k to your opponent's board by reactivating a dull backup you control. Obviously Barreleye could just attack with No-No on the field, and you know, it's 3k then and there, but there's plenty of other ways in Win to be able to reactivate things as well. But not only that, also when your opponent discards a card due to your summons or abilities, you also get to choose a character and dull and freeze it. So basically, Shivalry ties in excellently with Barreleye because it can buff Barreleye. Barreleye can deal lots of damage to your opponent's board, and then when your opponent does discard because of Shivalry's effect, you then get to dull and freeze something else. Again, just disgusting. Terra. So you cast Shivalry on Terra. Terra will then Terror will then deal 2,000 damage to a forward your opponent controls. If you then have another means of finishing it off, or if that was the means of finishing off, you then get to just make your opponent discard a card. Not to mention the fact that obviously Terror can also get you Chivalry back to hand as well, and the more Chivalry, the more your opponent's going to be crying out in pain. Hecatoncheir. So the way that Chivalry is worded means that it has to be the forward dealing, or the forward you buff with Chivalry to deal the damage, and that's the way Hecatoncheir works. Hecatoncheir gets 2 forwards and forces them to fight, and yeah, jobs are good. So basically, being able to play Chivalry to buff a forward, to then cast Hecatoncheir, and obviously your forward's going to be big because Chivalry, and then hopefully, well, presumably the forward you're casting Hecatoncheir on your opponent's side will break, and then your opponent discards a card as well. Snow, bit of a weird card. I don't think it even really saw play in Opus 1, but here we are. When Snow blocks, choose one forward, dull it. So being able to cast Chivalry to make Snow a 10k forward is decent enough. You get to dull a forward out, but then, you know, Snow blocking and all means he's probably going to be breaking something, at which point you can then make your opponent discard a card. Sink. So kind of the other way around now, making your opponent block. So pay fire and dull, choose one forward. If possible, it must block this turn. So you make a forward have to block, you cast Chivalry to make a forward you control big. You then attack with said forward, that forward has to block, it blocks, it dies, and then you make your opponent discard a card. And finally, Babus. So this is kind of more talking about attacks as a whole, but Babus in particular, because when a forward your opponent controls attacks, choose one forward your opponent controls. If your opponent doesn't pay one, freeze it. Firstly, it's nice to note that it's not actually the forward that does attack that you get to freeze. It could be some other forward. So maybe your opponent's already got a dull forward, and then Babus attacks with your opponent attacks with another forward. You can then choose to freeze the other forward if your opponent does not pay one. But this basically, or the tax idea, is basically reducing the amount of backups that your opponent has to hand, because the chances of them discarding from hand to be able to pay that one are pretty slim. If they do, that's even better, because, you know, they're wasting CP. Also means that they're probably going to need to use their abilities on their backup lineup. But yeah, making them discard, and then also that means that your opponent's forward is attacking, at which point you can cast Chivalry to buff a forward, you know, maybe even Babus, and block with that forward, at which point the forward your opponent attacked with dies, and then you get to make your opponent discard a card as well. Right, next up we got Naja Salaheem. Now this is a bonkers card. I absolutely love it. It's not the most applicable card because obviously it talks about counters, but counters are quite fun, and the more cards that incorporate counters later in the game, the better this card becomes. So she is a 2CP 5k wind forward with the text, Naja Salaheem cannot be chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities. So some nice evasion there. And then when Naja Salaheem deals damage to your opponent, choose one character, select one counter placed on it. Double all the counters of the same type as the selected counter on that character. So obviously she can't be targeted, but she can be blocked quite easily, and also board-wide effects will still get rid of her as well. But use something like Zemus, and now your opponent cannot block her either. So unless your opponent has a means of either removing her from the game, or, you know, board wiping her, she's going to be going through and dealing opponent damage. Now there is a fantastic little combo here that I've come up with. So Chalinka, Nono, Chocolate, and Zemus. So I probably should have recorded a example here, but just follow me through the motions. So obviously use Zemus to make it so that Naja cannot be blocked anymore. You attack with Naja, and then you play Chalinka, sorry. You, to make Naja so that she can attack twice. You then attack with Naja. With your active Chocolate, you then dull to gain one counter. Nono will then take effect and reactivate the Chocolate. You then dull Chocolate again, giving her her second counter. Naja Salaheem will then deal a point of damage to your opponent. You can then double the counters on Chocolate. She now has 4. You then attack a second time with Naja Salaheem. Using Nono's effect, you reactivate Chocolate. You dull Chocolate again. She now has 5 counters. Naja Salaheem deals damage to your opponent, and you double the counters on Chocolate. She now has 10 counters on her. This thing that's bonkers. Obviously, you can only use Chocolate's dull, remove 2 item counters to draw a card once a turn, but it does mean now for 5 turns you can dull just as one backup to draw yourself a card. And with Nono on the field as well, it means that you can probably keep on reactivating her to gain more counters anyway, so realistically you dulling that one backup isn't going to be that much of an issue. Yeah, just lots of fun. Next, we've got Proto-Falsi Adam from Opus 14. So, if your opponent has 2 cards or less in their hand, Adam gains plus 2000 power and first strike. Already a pretty nice effect. But when Proto-Falsi Adam enters the field, place 2 manipulator counters on Adam. When Adam is chosen by summons or abilities, remove 1 manipulator counter from Adam. If you do so, cancel its effect. So basically, it's got its own little bubble effect, similar to Ilua, but not quite the same. Either way, I think that's really, really good. And again, if you can get even 1 Naja Salaheem effect off onto Adam, it then means it's got 4 counters on it, which means it will become ever harder to get rid of. Now, again, you need to be careful because it can still be board wiped, but the fact that if it's chosen by a summoner ability, even remove effects at this point, it still gets cancelled. So it becomes very hard for your opponent to get rid of. Leo! So I love this little card, and the reason that I picked Leo over the likes of Lena, despite the fact they have very similar effects, is because that Leo only costs you 1 CP, and ultimately he gains counters for the FFCC characters you control. And FFCC characters are incredibly consistent. They are super easy to play. I have a Earth Wind deck, funnily enough, that you can easily get to 5 backups in turn 2. It means you probably don't have a hand anymore, but still, turn 2, 5 backups, probably worth it. But yeah, you can play Leo and easily gain 5 or 6 counters onto him immediately. And if you can play Leo and then get Naja Salaheem to double the counters on him and give him 12 counters, that's nuts. Obviously Leo isn't too hard to kill, but if your opponent does invest in killing him, chances are they've invested more than you have, because he's only a 1 CP forward at the end of the day. And if you get even 1 recursion off of his ability, which does require 1 CP, but you know, he can now basically recur you 2 5k forwards onto the field. That's just really, really good. Rydia. So when Rydia enters the field, place 1 summon counter on Rydia, remove 1 summon counter from Rydia, cast 1 summon other than light or dark from your hand without paying cost. So you can cast any summon regardless of its cost, provided it isn't light or dark. So it could be a 9 CP, 10 CP, 20 CP summon. You know, the longer this game goes on and the more summons that are created, the better Rydia becomes. So yeah, being able to make it so that she can cast any 2 summons at any point during the game, you know, it can be used on your opponent's turn as well, even better. You could have 1 card in hand and just Rydia with 1 counter. You get rid of that counter, oh look, you're casting Raiden. You know, it's an excellent card to have, and it makes it worth investing in. And if you can then get her to 4 counters, you can cast any summon, provided it's not light or dark, at any point during the game, basically for free. That's just crazy. Edge. Now, Edge obviously only gains his counters from ninjas, but ninjas are super consistent, or rather Edge makes them super consistent, but it's also incredibly easy for him to get shuriken counters in a ninja deck, and that's probably why it's worth, even though she isn't a ninja, it's probably worth putting at least 1 Naja in a ninja deck. If you can make Edge go from 5 to 10 shuriken counters, yeah, definitely worth it. Right, next up, Vaan. Now we have here possibly a contender for my favourite card in the FFTCG. Now that might seem a bit weird because my other favourite, or my current favourite card is Light Vaan. I don't have any particular strong affiliation with Vaan. I don't know why I like his card so much, but I think it's just the way they play. I do love Final Fantasy TCG, so maybe that's why. But Vaan is a Wind Water 6 CP 8k forward with the text, when Vaan enters the field, you may search for 1 Job Sky Pirate of cost 2 or less and play it onto the field. Then activate all of the backups you control. When a Job Sky Pirate you control is chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities, choose up to 2 backups, activate them. What I particularly like about the bottom text of Vaan is the fact that it can also be your backups as well. So if your opponent's trying to break your backups or, you know, freeze them out, it doesn't matter, because provided it's a Job Sky Pirate, you get to activate 2 backups. So, you know, your opponent tries to freeze a backup you control, just reactivate it. So, something like No, this is great, because when you play a 12 forward onto the field, you get to activate a backup you control. Vaan himself is a 12 character, and I think all the Sky Pirates in the game are also 12 characters as well. So you'll be able to as well as Vaan being able to reactivate all your backups from playing a 12 onto the field, it also means you're going to get 2 No procs as well. I think everyone knows what card I'm going to link this with. Choco Latte. So, You play Vaan onto the field. You dull Chocolate. She gains a counter. You use your No proc to then reactivate Chocolate. You dull her again. She's got 2 counters. Vaan will then play a Sky Pirate onto the field. That will give you a No proc to reactivate Chocolate. You dull Chocolate again, you get a card to hand. And then Vaan will reactivate all your backups. And yeah, you're good to go. You can dull Chocolate again if you don't want it. It doesn't really matter. All you've done is you've played Vaan, you've played a forward onto the field, and you've gained a card from it as well. And you get all your backups. Now, obviously, I say get all your backups. This is provided you do have 5 backups. But, you know, if you do, that's just incredibly good. That is a fantastic way to make Vaan free, and he is basically already free even without the Chocolate combo. Elsa. Now, obviously, you play Elsa into that previous combo. It means you're getting another card to hand as well. So you're playing Vaan, you're getting all your backups reactivated, you're getting a card off Chocolate, and you're getting a card off Elsa. 2 cards to hand, all your backups activated, and 2 forwards on the field. That's freer than free. That's paying you. And then Tomage. So obviously Vaan can play a Sky Pirate of 2 CP or less onto the field, but it doesn't have to be a forward, so it can be a backup. So maybe you're struggling to get some backups onto the field. It happens to everyone. Play Vaan, search a Tomage. I can't remember if there's any other Sky Pirate backups at the moment, but you know, the more there become, the better. Actually, no, there is a couple of Fran. There we go. I actually managed to remember. Fran, is there a Bolfir? I don't think there's a Bolfir. That's a backup. But yeah, either way, be able to play backups onto the field is still really, really good. IMO. So I mentioned earlier about when a Sky Pirate you control gets targeted, you get to reactivate 2 backups. You can use IMO to then choose, you know, let's say Vaan gets targeted by an ability. You can use IMO to change the target from Vaan to Vaan, because you can ultimately re-target the same forward that was targeted around, and then you can reactivate 4 backups from that, because it will re-trigger Vaan as well. Let's say that you actually paid for IMO's abilities using your backups as well. Obviously, even though you're going to reactivate all 4 backups, or you're going to reactivate 4 backups, IMO will be broken, but that is all 4 of your backups reactivated, so it basically means that IMO only costs you a break. Ovalia. So you block with Vaan, use Ovalia's S, you bring Vaan back onto the field. Obviously Vaan will re-enter dull, but it does mean that he can then search you another Sky Pirate, bring that onto the field, and then if you are currently blocking your opponent's attacks, that's another forward to be able to block with. But it also reactivates all your backups as well, including Ovalia, which you use. So if you have another Ovalia S in hand, why not? Okay. Finally, a card that I've been quite excited to talk about is Dark Elf, because he has some interesting text. So if Dark Elf is dealt 9,000 damage or more, the damage becomes 0 instead, and he is a 4 CP AK Earth forward. So he's got like an inverse Minwu effect. So, you know, comboing him with Minwu kind of makes sense. So if he takes damage less than his power, the damage becomes 0. Takes damage of 9k or more, the damage becomes 0. So with Minwu on the field, your opponent has to deal exactly 8k to the Dark Elf, otherwise the damage becomes 0. Obviously he can still be outright broken through various effects, as well as just having his power lowered, but still, it's quite a hilarious combo to have. But if you were to add Sieghard into the mix, it means that you can actually make it so that Dark Elf is impervious to any damage whatsoever. I think it was about OPUS X, they changed the way that damage replacement effects work, so that they technically are stackable, or you can change the order in which they resolve in. So let's say Dark Elf were to take 9k damage. Now Sieghard could reduce that damage to 8k, at which point Dark Elf would be taking damage equal to its power, and then would break. What you can actually do is say to it, I want Dark Elf's ability to take precedence here, and so that damage actually becomes 0. Sieghard would then try to reduce the damage, it's already 0, and Minwu, again, is already 0. And then if you were to take 8k damage, just straight up 8k damage from something, Sieghard can then choose to reduce that damage down to 7, and then Minwu will take effect to reduce that to 0. So you have to be careful in the way that you order the damage replacement effects, but ultimately with these 3 cards, it means that Dark Elf will never take any damage. And then you also got Enacro as well. Probably an easier way of getting this to happen, because obviously making Dark Elf a 9k forward means that his damage, well, he will always receive damage less than, it will become 0, and then he'll always receive, even if he takes 9k damage, because his own text stipulates 9k damage or more, it becomes 0, so he will never take damage from this. Philia. Philia deals 10k to the board, but not Dark Elf, because Dark Elf doesn't take damage of 9,000 damage or more. Nice. Hooded Man. So Hooded Man, obviously when you play him onto the field, he can retrieve your Dark Elf from the break zone. So if Dark Elf is doing a good job of blocking, but then your opponent finally finds a way to break him, you can play Hooded Man to get your Dark Elf back. But also, let's say Dark Elf attacked this turn. At the end of your turn, you can then use Hooded Man to reactivate the Dark Elf as well. So he is still there to block. And Rydia. So you use Rydia to increase Dark Elf's power to 9k. So again, his damage with Minwu on the field, any damage will be reduced to 0, but also Dark Elf gains Brave from that as well, which is excellent because that means he can attack through and be quite hard to kill, because if you do have Minwu on the field and he is at all blocked, the damage will become 0. But also it means that he is an excellent blocker, because if he, basically at this point, if he blocks, the damage becomes 0. Nice. And finally, Doga. Obviously your opponent, if they're in lightning or, any means, there's pretty much every element a means to just outright break a forward now. So using something like Doga to make it so that during this turn, choose one character you control. During this turn, it cannot be broken by opposing summon's abilities that don't deal damage. So Dark Elf has to be broken by damage, but it can't be broken by damage if you have, say, Enacrow and Minwu on the field. So Dark Elf is basically impossible to break. Obviously, again, he can be removed from game and he can be put from the field into the break zone, but, they're pretty powerful cards that have to do that, so it means your opponent's probably going to be investing a lot into it, and it's probably worth it for you. But yeah, otherwise, Dark Elf, basically impenetrable. Wow, there we go. Episode 50, done and dusted. Thank you so much, guys. It's all because of you that I have been able to continue making these videos. We're nearly at 250 subscribers, and when we do get there, I will be doing a little competition where you can win 3 packs from OPUS 14, so that's pretty cool as well. But yeah, I can scarcely believe that we have made it to 50 episodes. That's nearly an episode a week for a year. So, nice. In regards to future episodes, so I am going to obviously continue making these weekly, but with restrictions in the UK basically having been lifted now, because this show was created in lockdown. I'd always had the idea of creating this show, but with enough free times on my hand when I was furloughed, it meant that I could invest the time into the show. But now I'm back at full-time work, so creating the show creating shows does put a bit more stress on me. But I have a plan, and I will be able to continue doing weekly card combo shows. My Let's Plays will be resuming, but they will be longer form, so they will be roughly 2 hours in length, but they will be once a week. So they will be coming out on, I believe, the Tuesday, so tomorrow. Yeah, they'll be just a bit longer, so similar amount of content, but it just means that I don't have to edit 7 videos a week and just do the one. So it's a lot less editing time for me, which means I can focus on prepping and actually editing other videos, like Behind the Card. So I will have so this will be monthly, every first Friday of the month, I will delve into a selection of cards from a particular Final Fantasy game and talk about how the effects of those cards relate to events and character abilities and character traits from the source material. So, for example, how Kumari from Final Fantasy X is basically a blue mage. He can use enemy abilities, and in the FFTCG, that's kind of represented in the fact that the backup from Opus 1, for example, emulates your opponent's backup elements. So you kind of see where the crossover is there. And then on the 3rd week of every month, and the 3rd Friday of every month, I will be doing deck techs. So I've got my little schedule here. So I'll actually be crafting some decks and sharing them with you guys, and explaining the cards I've selected, why I've selected them. Again, much like with the card combo show, they most definitely won't be meta. They will be more eliciting the silly combos I like to do, because there are sometimes some combos that I want to show in the card combo show that are just a bit too extravagant and they take a bit too long and require too much setup. So being able to do an actual deck tech means that I will be able to explain it a bit more in detail with you guys. As well as this, there'll also be some other just random editorials that I'll probably make as well, so just opinions on things. Also, I'll be pumping out some top 10s, so top 10s from each opus, starting with Opus 1 through to Opus 14. Opus 14. They will come when and as I can put the time into them, but I'm expecting to do at least one a month for now. And then there'll be a variety of other shows coming out as well. I will try and record myself with live gameplay because I do play at least once a week with some buddies. So trying to record some of those and get them to you guys as well would be fantastic. And you know, I feel like there's not enough live gameplay on YouTube at the moment of the FFTCG. So getting more of that out there should be awesome. Anyway, again, thank you so much, everyone. I really do appreciate it. It means the world to me. And the fact that there's, you know, nearly 250 of you that enjoy watching my content is crazy to me. But here we are. So, anyway, stay safe, everyone. And I will see you in the next video.